All right, so if you notice on La Lima, I uploaded a worksheet. Actually, I think it might need some updating, but you might be wondering what is this table? So the thing is that, again, for visual recognition, this is something you just need to practice. There's no way around it. No amount of lecturing that can really make you get it as well as you could by just repeating and studying it by yourself. So the thing is that when I show this classifying muscles part, especially for those of you who really like languages and word vocabulary and root words, this is a way to kind of make a good guess at where a muscle is just by the name or what a muscle does just by the name. So sometimes you can actually make a really good educated guess or it actually saves you studying time if you actually know the root words that we're going to cover. So yeah, this is one of the tools I use when studying muscles is just to kind of fill out this and figure out, okay, do I know the root words? Okay, so let's talk about action. So muscles contract and they cause some sort of movement, right? So that's what they're talking about when in regards to action when I talk about this column right here. Now, with this action, and in the Martini version, I'll upload it, and this might be in the slides I uploaded on like the muscle slides. This muscle terminology contains a lot of and some of them these we didn't cover in previous lectures, but you notice that some of these might be already familiar, some of this might be new. But the thing is that this list of words, I mean, it's not just throwing another homework, but many of the muscles in your body use some combination or one or some combination of these words. Okay, so here is the face. And here we have something called the masseter, this big muscle right here. And you can actually kind of feel it too. Yeah, so that masseter right there. And it's one of the main muscles in chewing. We might cover that next week on Monday. Oh yeah, and the review guide. So the review guide I'm shooting for at the end of this weekend at the least. I'm hopefully by Saturday. But again, I'm at least by Sunday. I'll upload a review guide for exam too. So it comes from a Greek word, masatai. I don't speak Greek, so I might mispronounce that. But it means to chew. So this is the chewing muscle, and actually is one of the main muscles in mastication. Mastication actually comes from that same root word too. And then you have the Buccinator. I've heard it multiple times. Sometimes Buccinator, Buccinator, Buccinator. I don't really care as long as you know what it's named. But yeah, so it comes from a Latin term buccinare, which means to blow a trumpet. So I guess when you blow a trumpet, you kind of do like hollow your cheeks out. I mean, I've never played any of the brass instruments. I played the cello in high school, but yeah, that's where the term comes from. It's the trumpeting muscle. And then you have something called the risorius. Now, risorius, if you know any of the Latin languages, it comes from, well, the original Latin word is ridere, which is laugh. But if you know like Portuguese, riso is laugh. Or then you have like things like laugh in Italian is also riso, and then risa in Spanish is laugh, and rire in French is laugh. So it all comes from the same Latin word for meaning to laugh. But look where the risorius is. It is below the masseter and buccinator. But what we have here is that the risorius. Now, remember, muscles contract, right? So notice that the risorius is right here, and it's all the way back there. What happens if you pull and contract that way? Does that look like a laugh to you? No, so that's why it's called the laughing muscle, but it looks like, what does it look like? It looks like a fake smile. You've seen this smile before, right? That fake smile. They're not smizing like Tara says. So again, it's like, that's the risorius. So it's kind of the fake, it's not really a laugh. It's more like the fake smile. So yeah, it's not, I mean, some people say like, common question or common, like a lot of anatomy teachers like to say, what are the laughing or smiling muscles? Is the risorius a smiling muscle? I mean, if you count that as a smile, I guess it is. But you won't see that kind of, I won't ask you, is the risorius a smiling muscle? Don't worry, I won't ask you that. Other anatomy teachers might do that, but not me. Because again, look at that. That's not a really genuine smile, right? Okay, so then things that what I'm getting at, sometimes muscles are named after their action or movement. So we had 3 examples there. The masseter comes from a Greek verb meaning to chew. Buccinator comes from a Latin word meaning to blow a trumpet. And risorius comes from a Latin word meaning to laugh, even though that looks like a very fake smile, right? So this is what I mean by action. Sometimes it helps to look at the etymology and look at what the actual word is. especially if you've taken any Latin-based languages. Sometimes you might have a head start because sometimes those Latin based languages, they actually carry over the same root word to their modern form. Okay, so then classifying muscles. Now let's talk about heads. So remember, what's the anatomical landmark meaning head? So remember the Zika virus and the small heads in those poor infants? They call it microcephaly, right? So cephalic means head. So cep actually is a root word meaning head. So what we have here is one of the muscles we covered earlier. Here we have the biceps brachii, and when something has the prefix bi, that means two, right? So there's not just one head to the biceps brachii, there are two heads. So there's a long head and a short head. So why do they call it two heads? Well, this is another reason why I'm not going to ask you to memorize origins or insertions. If I do mention origins or insertions, I'll ask you to define it or know how the insertion pulls toward an origin. But if I do have a detailed origin insertion question, I will give you the origin insertion because again, but what I'm getting at here is the thing is that the biceps brachii has two heads because it has two origins. But notice that it fuses together and comes together to a common belly over here. So it is one muscle, but it has two heads. It has two origins. So again, biceps meaning two. And now we're looking at the posterior view. So biceps, triceps, right? So again, a lot of the gym people like going to the gym. They like working those out. And I know mine are growing really small because of this lack of exercise. But again, triceps brachii. So when you have a tricycle versus a tricycle has how many wheels? 1, 2, 3, right? So this is the long head and this is the lateral head. But you might be saying, wait, tri means 3. So where is number 3? So what you have to do is look at a cross section, and triceps brachii actually has 3 heads. Yes, we see the lateral head here, the long head over here, but there's another head that's covered up. So this is deep. That's why you can't see it from here, because the long and lateral head are covering the medial head. So there are 3 heads. There are 3 origins to the triceps brachii. And then you have here in the back of the leg. So now we're looking at the hamstrings. And there's something called the biceps femoris. Now, different from the biceps brachii, because remember, brachial means arm, right? And femoris sounds like femur, your thigh, right? So biceps femoris also has 2 heads. So here we have the long and short head. So there are 2 origins. And even though it looks like there's a delineation, they do fuse down here and insert on a common area. So again, what I'm getting at is sometimes when you see biceps, triceps, and so let's cover that first. Biceps and triceps and biceps femoris. These are referring to the heads. That's again that seps meaning that root word meaning head. So again, bi meaning 2, tri meaning 3. Now quadriceps is a group of muscles. And again, instead of being in the posterior, these are in the front, like the rectus femoris and the vastus lateralis that we pointed out earlier. So this is why there's often like disagreement between how many skeletal muscles are in the human body. Again, do you consider a group one muscle or do you break it down into different heads? And anatomists disagree on that sometimes. I'm not getting into that fight. So the thing is that's why I'm not going to ask you how many skeletal muscles are in the human body. And that seems to be the biggest thing is like, do you consider a group one muscle or do you consider every single part of the group a muscle? Or do they share fascicles? All these other things that, again, we're just starting out here, most of us, right? So again, don't worry too much about that debate.